Welcome to the MWA podcast. I'm Kyle, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Sean, Mark, and Brian. Today, we're thrilled to welcome a very special guest, Mike Pekovich, the editor and creative director of Fine Woodworking magazine. Mike is an exceptional woodworker, dedicated instructor, and a true champion of the craft. So welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. We were talking before the show, Mike was on episode 30. So if y'all want to go back and check that out, feel free. Yeah. None of us are on that episode except for Mike. So.
Yeah, the only thing we have in common with that episode.
I had no recollection. I thought, wow.
I think it was like I think maybe your first book or something. I don't know. Something like that.
It had to have been something like that.
Yeah. Well, before we get to Mike, let's give our patrons a shout out. So who do we have to thank this week?
For sure. We like to give a big shout out to our Patreon supporters today. That particular big shout out goes to Nick Carruthers. Nick, thank you, sir, for supporting us. If you guys know Nick, he's a good guy.
Yes.
Anyway, if you'd like to support the MWA podcast, you can do that by going to patreon.com/MWA podcast. Help us out there.
Yeah, I like what you're doing on the on Instagram there, Nick. Really kicking it up a notch, so to speak. Haven't seen him move any heavy machinery lately, though. That's always fun. And Nick, I also misspelled your name in the show notes. You're Nike. So, be interested to see if you wore Nikes.
Maybe he's an heir to the family.
Maybe, could be.
Anyway, he's a Nike heir.
Nike Air, yes.
There it is.
There we go.
Well, with that, let's move on to what's in the shop. So, Mark, what are you working on?
I'm taking a short break from shave horse making to cut some bending and drying forms for Boggs rockers and Jeff's 2-slat chair. I've gotten a request for those, so firing up the CNC.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There you
How about you, Sean?
Not much, but the weather broke for a bit of a false spring, so I got to hit a few golf balls. The whole family was out at the driving range just yesterday amid a calm 15-mile directly north wind. The balls go far, which is fun. But really not much else, unfortunately. Work's been keeping me busy, so I kind of come home and just kind of relax a lot. Brian, how about you?
Yeah, work's been crazy as well for me. But we've
you're a
been
better man than I.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, let's just state the obvious. But yeah. So yeah, the wife's office renovations were pretty deep underway. All the demolitions completed, and I'm happy to announce that was not a load-bearing wall that I took out.
That's good.
That was going to be my question.
As Swiss cheese as it was.
Yeah. So yeah, that's good. Great. I mean, that closet that I took part of, it was 16 feet 6 inches long. I actually measured it, and 4 feet deep. So that's a big closet. So we took 6.5 feet of it, linear feet of it. So nice big reading nook now. So that's all done. I just have one more thing of electrical, one more outlet to kind of bring over. I used, if you don't have an inspection camera, I do suggest buying one, because the way the roof eave comes down, I was able to stick this thing up through a hole and look for my light that I had sitting in the attic. So like I used to use a bronchoscope at work. So I was pretty good with that. So I'm like just kind of following the eave, and I was able to grab it from the other end and bring the wire down without having to do like dramatic drywall opening, which is good.
Good.
Let's see what's next. Framing. We're going to start framing out for the places for the bookcases to go, and then start working on the arch. So it should go pretty quick, hopefully.
Did you figure out how you're going to transition shelf to arch to molding?
Not yet. No.
Okay. Forthcoming.
One thing at a time. But everything else is gone. The carpet's gone. There was no surprises in the subfloor, thankfully. No like hidden messages or anything, which I was a little disappointed with. So. But Kyle, how about you?
Just been working on this jig, the stretcher drilling guide for the I guess what you want to call them, straight tenons, conical tenons, non-tapered tenons, I guess you would say. But I've been working on that. That's going good. The only issue I'm having is coming up with a easy system to do H stretcher, because the way this jig is formed, it's got some threaded rod that goes through the seat. So I need to do something that's off the seat, and probably version 1 was overcomplicated. Version 2 was a little too narrow. So I'm on version 3 or 4 of it, but I think I got it nailed down now. So anyway, we'll see tomorrow. It's being glued up today as we're recording this. So
No?
tomorrow, hopefully I'll have that. And then the next step is to get this out to some people who make stick chairs on the regular to, put it through its paces and make sure I haven't missed anything, or if there's anything there that could be improved on or whatnot. So we'll see how that goes. So Mike, what about yourself? What are you working on in your shop?
Oh, do you want the long answer or the longer answer?
Well, we'll go for the longer answer.
Okay. Well, I was just thinking, it's like I'm not working on, strictly speaking, a piece of furniture. So in my mind, my first answer was, I got nothing going on. But I do a lot of class prep. I have a class, a design class this weekend. So I'm prepping for that. I am heading to Iowa next week to film an episode of, what is the TV show for Woodsmith? It's
The Woodsmith?
Woodsmith shop.
Woodsmith Shop, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yes. I just finished up a e-learning video shoot. I'm making a travel tool chest, and all those parts are still out and about because I'm also working on my third book, which has kind of been on hold, or at least on the back burner for quite a while. My cat is getting seen here. But I'm getting a restart on that, and the tool chest, which was the e-learning course, is now also going to be a chapter in the book as well. So a lot of, and then I do have a real commission, which is stalled out a little bit, that I need to get a go on. And I've got another commission that I need to get a start on. And I've got another commission, which I need to start on. So
So
nothing.
Really
Nothing going on.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah, nothing's going on. And isn't there a magazine you publish also?
yes. Fortunately, I've got other people working a whole lot harder on that than I am. So that's not.
Well, fantastic. Well, before we get started, I think most of our listeners know about you, but for those that don't, tell them a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and how you got into woodworking.
I'll definitely stay with a shorter answer on this one, because
Mhm.
we can burn a couple hours here and I'll put you guys to sleep pretty quick. Grew up in Southern California. I was the artist in a family of engineers, so I went to art school. But compared to everybody in art school, I was quite engineering minded, which kind of surprised me. So I found my way into a furniture making program in art school, and that's where I really caught the bug. Going out of school, I kind of goofed around a little bit, and when I wanted a real job, I went back to school for computer graphics, graphic design, and found my way into a job at Fine Woodworking magazine as an associate art director. That's about 28 years ago. So I've been there, and I've kind of worked my way up the ranks to art director for quite a while. Then they called me creative director, which I still don't know the difference between that and an art director. And more recently, I took over the editor's job. Speaking of wearing a lot of hats, but I'm still wearing the creative director's hat as well. So so I'm continually left with the feeling that no matter what I'm doing at work, whether it's layout or sitting in a meeting, still feels like I'm not doing what I should be doing. And so trying to still get a handle on that kind of stuff.
Interesting. Well, when you came to Fine Woodworking magazine, were you making a lot of furniture at the time?
I had a shop set up in my garage. I read Fine Woodworking magazine. In college, I read a lot, and then I found out that the magazine was more important to me when I wasn't woodworking, because it was kind of a lifeline to the craft. It was something that I still identified with, and it still kind of spoke to that essence of what I wanted to be doing. So I was more of a weekend woodworker when I came to Fine Woodworking, and it was kind of, at the time, it wasn't a really smart career move per se. I just liked the idea of somehow doing something that involved woodworking and not getting in trouble for reading a woodcraft catalog at my desk. So
Research.
yeah, and in school, making furniture within the art, the emphasis was always sort of on design, and then actually having to make the piece was kind of the ball and chain. keeping me from designing another piece. So when I came to Fine Woodworking, and I moved from the West Coast to the East Coast, and the heat came on, and this thing called seasonal movement, which was just yeah, you started to hear these things popping and cracking in the middle of the night. It's like, okay, I need to kind of relearn this craft. So really, I just came to Fine Woodworking, and just really decided to relearn the craft from the ground up. Forget design, don't worry about it. Just, really learn how furniture goes together. And that's when, I'm most influenced by the authors who have written so much for the magazine, people like Garrett Hack and Chris Bexford, Steve Latta, Michael Fortune. Those guys are my heroes, my mentors, my teachers, and I'm still just, so indebted to those people who dedicated their lives to the craft, and then just the huge generosity in sharing their knowledge and their information. I'm still just, floored by that. So I really got back into woodworking, doing commission work. And then back in 2008, during that recession and commission work dried up, I kind of fell into teaching, which was something I had kind of thought I would want to do way in the future. And it kind of fell upon me sooner than I wanted, but it kind of coincided with my eldest son, my only son, my oldest child, getting ready to go to college. So I thought, oh, okay, teaching and making some side income. Yeah, I kind of fell into teaching. The first year I taught 3 week-long classes, and I thought, well, don't depend on this income, because chances are I'm never going to teach this much in a year again. And of course, it's just been more and more and more. I teach about 7 weeks a year on week-long classes. And then I live in Connecticut, Valley School of Woodworking in East Hartford. That's kind of my home base. So I'll do weekend classes in the off seasons there. So yeah, lots of teaching, commission work. I love writing for the magazine. I love, I mentioned I'm working on a 3rd book. I really enjoy that aspect of it. So
yeah, one of the things that I think is, I can't even imagine working for Fine Woodworking magazine in the aspect that all these people, like you mentioned, that you get to meet, and not only meet, but hang out with and see how they work, and hang out in their shops and see their work processes, and, see them make mistakes and throw things around the shop and those kind of things. So how does Fine Woodworking magazine select the contributors and topics for the magazine?
I mean, and it's hard to find Woodworking. It's still a reader-written magazine. From the very beginning, when Paul Roman started the magazine, he wanted to learn about woodworking. I think he got like laid off from GE or something, or they gave him 6 months notice, like before he had to quit working. And in that time, he started up a woodworking magazine. And so he just wanted to find the top woodworkers around, to basically learn everything he wanted to know that he didn't have access to information. This was 1975. So you had probably Popular Mechanics. You had, I don't know if Wood Magazine was around at that time or not, but one of the first people he reached out to was Tay Frid, who was teaching at RISD at the time and became one of our prominent early contributors. And that really started the ball. So I would say from that time on, everyone writing for the magazine, it's a mixture of veterans of the craft as well as anybody who's got an idea. I mean, it could be students, it could be someone just passionate amateurs typically. And that's still the mix. So basically, in fact, just today, we get together. People are more than welcome, and we encourage people to submit any ideas that they have, and we go through every single one, talk about them, and for the most part, that's what turns into articles. And then if there's sort of a hole in the mix that we need to fill and say, hey, we need to do something on 5 ways to cut a tenon, let's talk to Bob Van Dyke or Gary Rogowski and see if they want to come up with something like that. So some of the articles will we've got a number of people who have written for us in the past, which we'll reach out to. But by and large, I think, just being a resource and a clearinghouse and a place for discourse on the craft, kind of a open, forum, like, hey, this is what's going on. So I think that's part of the longevity of the magazine, is that it's not based on a staff of woodworkers who are trying to come up with projects people are going to like on a monthly or issue to issue basis. It's really, it changes and evolves with the people that we've got writing for the magazine. In fact, we're just now working on getting our 50th anniversary issue out the door next week.
Wow.
So
Wow.
a lot.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, kind of feels like my mom and dad were in church one day, and the minister asked everybody who's married for 50 years to stand up. And my mom said, "Can I stand up if it feels like 50 years?" So I've only been there 28, but I think I can feel the weight of the 50. So we're doing kind of a lot of looking back as well as looking forward. We have a lot of kind of regular issue content, and we have some special articles. Asa Christiana is doing a kind of look back of kind of a timeline of tool innovation, which is kind of cool.
Oh, yeah.
And I got John Binzen is doing a piece on up and coming makers, and he found so many that even after winnowing them down, it's going to have to be a 2-part article. So we're running, I think, 8 or 9 people in this issue, and we'll follow up. And Anissa Capsalis is doing an article just kind of looking back at the kind of the giants of the craft, the people who have really shaped the direction of the craft in the last 50 years, whether it was through their teaching or the work that they're doing. So that's kind of fun. So I think it'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully it's not something that just the staff is super excited about, but I think if you've been involved with the magazine at all for a while, hopefully it's going to be a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, sounds definitely cool. Definitely look forward. Wait, is that the next issue that's coming out?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is we're always working ahead of schedule. So it's basically going to the printer next week. So it'll be out typically maybe a month after that. I don't even know what month this is, March, April, maybe Mayish.
Mayish. Okay. Now, are you still doing the layout for the magazine, or are you just approving it at this point?
I do. I'm supposed to be doing half the layouts. I'm not. So unfortunately, I've got a really talented assistant, John Tetro, who's just a great woodworker and creative genius as well. And he's really kind of laying out the majority of the issues these days, although that is kind of where my heart is. I really like laying out an article because it really involves, typically you'll get a manuscript in 3,000 or 4,000 words, and you have to read it 10 times in order to really understand what the author is trying to communicate. And then my job is to, let's figure out how to communicate this by adding some pictures and illustrations and sidebars, so I can communicate it to someone really quickly. I have so when we were on the newsstand, my job is to let you flip through an 8-page article and within 5 minutes get a general understanding of what's going on. So that's kind of superficial level. And then if you want to dive in, so you're reading kind of the little panel heads on each, or you're looking at the photos. Oh, I get this. And then that little bit deeper dive, you're actually reading the captions for the photos. And it's like, oh, okay, maybe taking longer look at the illustrations. Okay, I have a deeper understanding of what's going on here. And then 5 years later, when you really want to go back and make that piece, you really start to read all the words a couple times. Hopefully the information is there for you to be able to make what you want to be making. So we call that surf, snorkel, dive. So I love communicating information on multiple levels. So something that you can get to really, really quick to have an understanding of it, a little bit deeper dive to have a deeper understanding. And then when push comes to shove and you need that information, hopefully that's all there as well.
Well, yes. And I resemble those remarks because I have a little note notes taking on the Apple. And every time I go through a magazine, I'll sit there and go, okay, find woodworking number so and so. Here's the projects I like from this particular issue. So when I can go back and go, okay, what did I want to build? Oh yeah, I want to build that. Where was that?
Yes.
Go straight back to it. But that's one of the I guess compliment to you, because I guess you've probably been in charge of it as long as I've been reading Fine Woodworking Magazine. But the layout has always, Fine Woodworking Magazine to me has always spoke with a voice. And the layout is probably the largest section of that voice. And you can go through there and, it's like, every time you open up the magazine, you know what you're going to find. It's going to be great, but you know exactly, kind of the format and stuff like that. And I don't know if comforting's the right word, or just, it's meeting my expectations, and then the articles will exceed my expectations, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
So there's a certain cadence, a certain familiarity with the way the information's being presented.
Right.
I probably kind of equate that to, before I came to the Fine Woodworking, I was actually a graphic designer at Vans, the skate shoe company in California. And so I was doing annual reports and billboards and magazine ads and shoe boxes. And basically every project I worked on, I started by choosing what font I wanted to use. What was a hip font? How was this going to look? And then I came to Fine Woodworking, and I was sort of astonished to see that, oh no, you just use the same font for the headline every time, and this body copy every time. So, it's like working within these constraints, but then trying to be really creative in the way you communicate within a very constrained system. So I think that kind of speaks to, not really trying to push the limits in terms of the format. I find that if I'm doing something from a layout perspective because I'm bored, that's not a good thing. If I'm kind of working to hopefully convey the information in a really, really clear and inspiring way, an intuitive way, and it's also an exciting way to experience that, then that's a good thing. So it's sort of like you go to see the Beach Boys, you want to hear them play Good Vibrations the way it sounds. Like, and the last thing they want to do is play it that way. It's like, it's kind of like you're always kind of balancing that. So yeah, and the main thing to think about being a reader written or outside written magazine is a lot of the time, one of the really great things is we can shine a light on the careers and lives of people who, you're alone in your shop doing stuff. Nobody knows what you're doing, and your spouse probably has heard way more about what so just to be able to kind of shine the light, have go in and really be able to document in a very small way, someone who's dedicated their life to the craft. So that kind of human element is really, really important. So again, I try not to take that for granted or overlook that, again, just because I want to do something, cool and nifty. So yeah, it's all about the information. It's all about the people. And if I can do that in a way that holds your interest and gives you the information you want, yeah.
Well, I want to go back to something you said about the anniversary issue and looking forward, and that you have an article coming out with all the new makers, and it's going to be a two-part article. So where do you see the craft going over the next 5 to 10 years? I know at one point I went to a Woodworking in America back in 2009-ish, 10-ish, and they had a symposiums about, hey, how are we going to get young people into the craft? This craft is going to die. And now it seems like, at least to me as an old guy, it seems like it's going the exact opposite direction. It seems like a lot of young people are coming into the craft.
Yeah, 100%. If you asked me this question, 15 years ago, pre-internet, pre-social media, I would say, and everybody on this staff would agree, that woodworking was an aging and dying craft. And we're just going to ride this thing out and, try to record as much knowledge as we can while we're here. And then I don't know if it was social media exposing woodworkers to people in gaining interest, or I think a lot of it is just exposing us to woodworkers who were doing really good work that we had no way of
Yeah.
finding out about. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'm so excited. Like once we kind of started looking on social media and seeing what people were doing, and getting those people into the magazine, getting those people into the conversation. And I think it really works both ways. We had some younger guys coming on to the staff who they were like, oh, you need to know who this YouTube guy is. You need to know who this YouTube guy is. You've got none of this in your magazine. And then conversely, I'm saying, yeah, you're right. I need to know all those people. But at the same time, your job is to tell all of those people who know about those people about all the pre-internet people. Tell them about Chris Bexford and Daryl Peart and Gary Rogowski, people pre-social media, because it's like, I think it goes both ways. So very open to new people coming in. And at the same time, I think our mission is to really convey the history of the craft. So yeah, so 50th anniversary, I think we play a really important role to maintain a certain body of knowledge which has been collected over the years, to shine a light on the people who've been involved in the crafts for that time, but also open the door for, number one, everybody doing great stuff to be in the magazine, but also anybody who's like halfway interested in the craft and wants to get inspired. I want to be able to help with that inspiration and give them the information they need. So, I think online or whatever, you people, turn their noses up at pocket screws or river tables or epoxy or whatever. And it's like, it's all good,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I still use pocket screws in my shop furniture all the time.
They
And
used
occasionally on
screws.
size.
They were used 200 years ago. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh,
Yeah.
longer
or
than
further.
that.
Just didn't have
Yeah.
a blue jig to drill the holes
yeah,
with.
exactly. Just didn't have Craig. No one knew
Yeah.
who Craig was back then.
Yeah, I think Craig probably revolutionized the pocket hole with more of the drill bit than the actual jig in some respects.
yeah. But I mean,
Yeah.
go back nearly 30 years when Norm he had that full industrial table that did nothing but pocket. Whatever that. It was like a
Yeah.
big old shopmaker's tool.
Just the Castle pocket hole machine.
Yeah, was that what it was? Yeah, I mean,
That's cabinet shops. That's what we used when we needed pocket holes fast. That's how we made them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tried and true manufacturing tool.
Yeah. So just as a slightly subversive thing, we got Mark Edmondson, who's a fantastic woodworker. I think he was a College of the Redwoods grad, doing phenomenal work. We had him do an article on
Nice.
a way to use pocket screws in furniture. So
Nice.
Nice.
yeah, we have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Well, before I talk a little bit about your woodworking, I
Yeah.
think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about how has the consolidation of the woodworking magazines going so far, and are you pleased with the direction that Fine Woodworking magazine is going to be, going in the next 5-10 years, that kind of thing too?
Yeah, I mean, who knows what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years these days, but I think, the immediate future is looking really bright. So for folks who haven't been aware, Fine Woodworking used to be owned by Taunton Press, which was a family-owned company in Newtown, Connecticut, and they were still a family-owned company. The original founders, Paul Roman and his wife Jan, who started the company, they had retired for quite a while. Their kids, who were involved in the company for a time, chose to go different ways. So they basically kind of were looking for hopefully a new home for the company, and we were acquired by Active Interest Media, which they own a number of titles, magazines, but it's not just a venture capital clearinghouse, strip it down, sell it on. They really care about their products, and we've been given a ton of support. And of course, going into that situation, we didn't know what the heck was going, but a really cool thing is that they acquired the titles from Taunton Press. basically because we had really been charting a course for online membership and really trying to navigate the whole digital versus print scenario, which has been so difficult for so many publishing companies to get a handle on, that they really kind of were asking for our expertise in getting other titles up and running as well. And so among a bunch of other titles, the woodworking titles owned by AIM is Popular Woodworking, Woodsmith, and Woodshop News. And what I'm really excited about is that we've lost a couple magazines recently, the craft has. So in terms of, servicing the craft, trying to get something out there for as many people as possible. I'm really excited to be working strategically with other magazines rather than just, in direct competition, to where it's like, hey, who are the people that need information? What are they looking for? And if fine woodworking can't service everyone equally well, maybe, Woodsmith is phenomenal with their plans. Pop Wood has a different vibe and soundtrack to it. So it's like, how can we work together to maintain our own distinct brands and identities while serving as broad a swath of the people in the craft as possible? So,
and you were talking about people pitching ideas, and now you can just be like, instead of rejecting it, you can say this would fit better in this magazine, right? So let's send it over to them.
Yeah, that's very cool.
100%. And we're just barely starting to have those conversations. So it'd be a little premature to talk to Phil Hubert Woodsmith. Hey, here's an article for you, Phil. I told him you would.
We didn't want it, but you can have it.
Yes, that's right. That door would swing both ways really quick. So.
Yeah. So, but it sounds like, there will be some economies of scale between the different magazines and that kind of thing. I think didn't y'all all pitch in together to do the Fine Woodworking in America conference this year?
Yeah. So Woodworking in America in Des Moines, Iowa, that was really kind of Phil Huber with Woodsmith. It was kind of his baby. We were pitching in as much as we could in terms of having some support on hand and maybe coming up with some different ideas for presenters. And we're just now kind of brainstorming the next event as well. And that's really fun. So we'll be doing that out in Iowa again. And something that Fine Woodworking had started on, and we used to do a weekend live event where it was a nice destination event, and COVID had kind of shut that down. And
I was about to ask you about that event too. We really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of dip my toe back into the event space a little bit, and also I just kind of wanted to just as a thank you to everybody for sticking with us, whether it was through COVID or through the recent ownership change. We basically just threw a big block party at Connecticut Valley School of Woodworking over a weekend last April. We had, I think, 1,000 or so people come over a couple days, and it was really fun. And we're going to be doing that again. In fact, I think that's May 9th and 10th this year. So it's going to be over a weekend. We'll have a lot of demonstrations, vintage tools, food trucks, super cool stuff. So that's kind of a strictly fine woodworking branded event. But if you're in the Northeast, I'll put that on your calendar because that'll be a blast.
Cool.
You guys were able to make it out last year, not?
No, I wasn't. I live in Texas, so it's sometimes hard, especially when some of these things. Wait, they're having an event. When is it? Oh, it's a month from now.
You're retired. Oh, get on the plane.
But we did enjoy coming out. I think we went to like the last 3 or 4 Fine Woodworking Lives, and those were always fun to go to. And I like that event because it was kind of, hey, we're all in the same event space and we're spending 3 days together and we're eating together and all that kind of stuff. And it was a lovely thing, but I imagine it was a total nightmare to put on.
Yeah. I mean, when you have an editor, not the creative director, they have enough time on their hands. They're just, so they're the ones who were always championing those live events. And it's just been a little bit too busy for me to really want to take that on. But everybody on the staff really enjoyed it, in spite of the amount of work, and everybody who attended, we heard nothing but positive things and questions. We're going to do
Yeah.
it. So, I would say, fingers crossed. It's on my bucket list of things to do.
Yeah. Well, speaking of live events, do appreciate y'all, always participating in the Texas Woodworking Festival. So that's been good. And that's a up and coming festival. It seems to get bigger and bigger each year. So
Yeah, I was out there for the first time this last year. That was the first time I was there. I was out there with Amanda Russell from the web team, and we had a blast. A great, nice little show. I was able to make it upstairs and watch some of those demos, and really, really cool stuff.
yeah.
And you guys
Really-
a podcast live on the main stage there as well, I believe.
Yeah. Well, I basically emceed a few things for Austin up there, and it was fun, and hopefully y'all at least got across the street to get some barbecue and stuff.
Yes.
Okay. Make sure priorities.
Yeah. I'm still a little shy about submitting that receipt for expenses because I bought a lot of meat there.
Yeah. How many beef ribs did you get?
I made this mistake. Ribs, they're small, right? Give me a couple of those too. So,
Yeah.
Pound and a half a piece.
A half pound of brisket, half pound of turkey, a few sides, and a couple ribs. That sounded like lunch, and it was like
A couple $100. Yeah.
and dinner and breakfast. But,
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of visiting that exact restaurant myself when I was in Austin just not too long ago.
Yeah.
Very
And
good. Not even.
back in the first part of December, Wilbur Pan and I did a whole barbecue tour through Texas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
So it was good. It was good. But getting back to your woodworking.
Yeah.
So, I'm always impressed with the stuff that you do, whether I see it, on your Instagram or through the magazine and stuff like that. But what are some of your favorite projects that you throughout the year?
Oh, I like them all. They're all my babies. Which one is better?
The
Really,
last one, that's your favorite one.
They can't hear you, Mike. They won't be upset.
look, I've got one right over my shoulder here.
Mhm.
It's staring.
Yeah,
at-
I've been looking at that handle on that. That's pretty interesting.
Ah.
Or the pull, should I say, the drawer pull.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a wrapped handle. In fact, I'm just I just did a quick kind of technique article on that. It was actually part of a jewelry box that I had just made and photographed for an article, and I did a little companion department on wrapped handles because I end up using that everywhere on lots of different stuff. So that's coming up. Not in 3/17. That's our anniversary issue. One thing as an editor is I try to write articles when I can, and when I do an article, I photograph it and lay it out so it's like one and done, and it's just sitting there. And if we have something fall out of an issue, it's like, oh, I got something. Let me throw this in here.
in the can. Yeah.
In the can. So favorite piece of furniture, actually, probably. So about the time 2008 when I stopped doing commissions, I had done an article on digital photography, and this was like pre-social media. So what are you doing with digital photographs? Well, you make a little book through Apple, and you have a book printed out with your photos in it, so you can get a portfolio made. So I made this portfolio as an example of what you can do with your digital photographs once you have good pictures. And I looked at it and I realized, like, all my stuff, it was kind of a lot of commission work. The commissions you get before you have an identified style, which meant some arts and crafts stuff, some shaker stuff, some contemporary-ish stuff, some period-ish stuff. And I was happy with everything I'd made, but when I looked at it as a whole, there wasn't a there. Nothing really kind of spoke to me. And so I would say that kind of from that point on, I really worked on not working in a style, but try to not consciously work in any style at all. So, I mean, there was definitely an influence of all the things that I was super passionate about, mainly shaker and arts and crafts furniture. But, the idea is I would kind of strip everything down and just build from a kind of quote unquote undesigned point of view, really limiting my details and joinery, kind of limiting my variables and working within a really kind of constrained variable set and try to be as creative as possible, which I think that's the nature of woodworking. We're working in a really tough medium. So I think, how do we be creative in a really confining thing that doesn't always want to do what we want it to do? So I'd say a lot of my work since then has really evolved towards, I guess, what would be kind of my style, which is in shorthand. It's like, Mike, why do all the joints in your furniture stick out? So like, that's my stuff.
Yeah, you do have the
How I
proud
roll.
tenons, the proud dovetails,
dovetails,
yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, and yeah, I can see one of the, I can just see a photo of something in the magazine. You go, oh, that's the article Mike Pekovich is writing. Yes.
Yeah, back when I could kind of dabble in shaker and arts and crafts pieces, which I still do on occasion for the articles. Like once I really started working in kind of quote unquote my little more personal style, it limited the number of articles that could really fit in the magazine in any given year. So that's fine. I get that.
Well, now one of the aspects of your work, besides the proud joints, is putting kumiko in there. So, how did that transpire?
We had done a back cover with John Reed Fox years ago where he had a little sideboard with sliding doors and kumiko panels on the doors. And I love that thing. It was the first time I'd ever seen kumiko incorporated into a piece of furniture. I'd seen other examples. A lot of times it was just kind of people would do something and frame it and hang it on a wall, or it was within the context of kind of Japanese architecture in a traditional form. So when I saw that, I thought that was cool. And I was afraid it took a couple of years before I gave it a try. Number one, can I even do this? Number two, if I can, how long is this thing going to take? So I had kind of a wall cabinet left over from teaching a class, and I decided to remake that door to incorporate a square, and turned out it was not difficult and it didn't take that long. And the other thing is, I thought this is kind of fine, intricate, lacy looking thing. I thought there's no way this is going to go with my furniture, which tends to be a little elemental, a little heavy. And it's like, I don't care. I'm in my shop. No one's going to see it. So I'm going to do it anyway. And I just kind of actually like the way that kind of graphic kind of pop kind of worked within the otherwise restrained style. So my idea was that I was going to really explore different kumiko patterns. I mean, there's hundreds of them out there. And instead, what I did is I kind of kept to the traditional pattern and just tried to figure out different ways to incorporate that into my work, different pieces, whether it's box lids, door panels, mirror frames, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it's gotten a little popular. I do enjoy it. I don't know why I keep coming back to kind of the social media or kind of the exposure of your work. If I was still working in private and I had come across kumiko, I think I would just, okay, I'm here. This is what I'm making for the rest of my career because no one else is doing this. Like no one's going to, like, who would even see that you're doing this? But so I think the good and bad with social media is that, yeah, you post stuff and, you get a lot of hits and a lot of feedback. Hey, that's great. And then you see a lot of people get inspired and try their hand on it, which is like really great too. And so on one hand, I always found that, posting on Instagram back when I started, it was like, oh, here's an excuse to make something I don't have a reason to make. It's just because it's something cool. And so that's really neat because it gets me to do stuff. And a thing that is negative in one sense, but I think it's really positive, is that you do something and then it's sort of like, all right, we've seen you do that. Do something else. I mean, this is my internal dialogue, right? I gotta come up with a new joke, stand-up routine.
Boring.
So, that said, so I do try to move things forward, but at the same time, I'm a little compulsive where I feel like I'm making the same thing over and over and over again just to get it out of my head to move on. So it's this push pull where I want to not introduce something that is just for the sake of some giga that I'm sticking on my furniture. Yet at the same time, I do like the idea of slowly acquiring details that kind of fit into my tool chest of ideas that I can throw out. So whether it's a simple chip carving on a shelf front, whether it's kumiko, whether maybe that's it.
Yeah. Well, it's tastefully done, and it always has, and I think a lot of arts and crafts, has that Asian influence, and that kind of just capitalizes on that and really brings it forward. But talking about the internet, I remember, and I guess it's still big, but I remember when Green and Green was really big, and you would see all these pieces that people would make, and they would put every Green and Green element into one piece.
Pegs everywhere. Yeah.
Like, oh, yes, you executed all the elements correctly, but they don't all go together.
And you got them all on there. You got 17 pieces of flair. You got it.
Well, I just want to take a minute to talk about the classes you teach. You tell our listeners about some of the classes you teach. I know you mentioned you're going to be teaching a design class, but what other types of classes do you also teach?
Yeah, so week-long classes, they tend to be a project of some sort, a piece. If you drive somewhere or fly and spend 5 or 6 days in a class, you kind of need to, I think, come home with something to show for it. But at the same time, my focus on teaching is never about running you through an assembly line so you end up with something done, by the class. It's, if I'm taking a class, I want to learn something. I want to be able to take some skills or ideas home with me to incorporate into my work. And so, it's the biggest challenge is I do a number of projects, everything from small tea boxes with a kumiko panel and lid to hay rake tables to 7-drawer dressers to a variety of wall cabinets and such. All of them are constrained by the time limitations, but at the same time, I really strive to use techniques that I would use myself in a shop by myself. So, and that's evolved quite a bit. And Kyle, we were talking about kind of having that kind of engineering mind, that problem solving mindset, which I really enjoy. And the thing I found out was that things that I could just kind of get my way through in terms of techniques in my own shop, by the time I taught them to a class of 10 or 15 people, it's like things were breaking down. And so I would always be aware of what's happening here, where are the roadblocks, and kind of reverse engineer that process. Okay, how can I get people through this in a more successful fashion? And so for a short time, there was a disconnect between the way I taught and the way I worked in my own shop. But what I realized is when I really tried to figure out a way to make students who are doing this for the first time have more success, I realized, oh, that's a much better way to do it. So I think my woodworking career, was in stages. In college, I really learned how to 4-square board and custom joinery, make furniture. When I came to fine woodworking, I really relearned the craft from the ground up. And then when I started teaching 10 or 12-ish years ago, I relearned the craft again from the standpoint of, let's get really smart about this. Let's really think about what we're doing and kind of come up with ways that not only can students get through, but I think get closer to best practice. Not that there's one best way to do everything, but, can I really rethink things to come up with a really efficient way to build? And that dovetailed exactly into the books. My first book, I've written 2 books now, and they were both really, really focused on trying to convey a way of woodworking so that you're doing better work with less stress and less effort. That sounds like selling snake oil, but it's not. I think while we often blame our own lack of skills or expertise or patience on work that we're not happy with, a lot of it, that the problems with our work is really built into the overall approach, which can be really tough to get your head around if you're just trying to learn how to cut a dovetail. So this is getting back to my classes. All my classes, whether it's a project-based class or technique, I try to approach it on a number of levels, whether it's best practice, but also take a step back. Let's look and see how we're not only cutting mortise and tenons and rabbets and dados and dovetails. Let's see how they all fit together into an overall project. And then let's see how we can tackle all of those individual steps to get us from A to Z in a really efficient way possible, where we're going to be doing really, really good work. And that's what I hope people are taking home with them. It's information from a fire hose, so I know you're not going to get all of this in 5 or 6 days, but I hope it plants a seed and kind of points a direction forward in your own woodworking. So those are the classes I teach. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's cool. No, I think that's spot on, because I've taken a number of classes now. They're all chair making classes, but that was my thing. Hey, I want to learn the skills. I'm not really concerned about the chairs. In fact, every chair class, I even went to a 4-week one, and all the last 2 days, the push to get everything done.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no, I flew out here. I'm taking this home in parts, or something like that, or I'm shipping it back, and I can't ship a complete chair. I can ship maybe just the undercarriage put together, that kind of thing. But so I was always about learning the skills that are being taught by the instructor and how they go about solving those problems, doing those joints, all of that kind of stuff. And I think that's the most important thing you can take away from a class. But you mentioned one class you doing the haystack table.
The hay rake table.
Rake table. So how are people getting that back home?
Yeah. Don't know.
Quarter scale model.
That's a really cool piece in that it is glued together, but all the joints are fastened through drawbar joinery.
Yeah.
So the idea is that we can pound pins in, and we have a completely fully rock solid assembled piece. And then it's just like, pop it out, take it home. Once you're home, put some glue in there and drive those pins in, and there's your table. So
that makes sense. Yeah. That's sometime I'll tell you about getting a half a Windsor squeezed into a Ford Mustang at Pete Galbert's place. Anyway, so tell us a little bit about some of the video workshops you're doing with Fine Woodworking. You just have one, the fundamentals of woodworking, that you've done.
Yeah. So
it's more of a class, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we do a couple things. So we do a series of, we call them video workshops. Those are typically multi-part, 10 or 12 part videos based on a certain project. That stuff for our online members, that's the kind of stuff that they get as part of their membership. So that's we kind of feed the beast by cranking those things out. And then it's sort of a little different thing. A couple of years back, we started doing what we call them e-learning courses, where those are on-demand courses.
Mm-hmm.
Usually the first couple times they run, it's like a live class. It starts on this date. Every week there's going to be a Q&A, Zoom Q&A. We can check in and see how we're doing, and that can last 6 or 7 weeks and really walk through it. And then after a while, once those run a few times, those are available on demand, meaning you can go pay a much reduced price and be able to access all the information and kind of go about it that way. So I've done, the very first one we did was Foundations of Woodworking, which really was tied into the book. My second book, which was published just about the same time. So it really leveraged that information. And then more recently, I had done a furniture design course, which is what I'm teaching in person this weekend coming up. So that was really cool. And the third one I'm doing, we typically don't do projects per se, but we thought that if we're doing a project with a bigger appeal, something shop related, whether it's a workbench or a tool chest. And so we decided on doing a tool chest, because whether you like Federal or Shaker or contemporary or arts and crafts furniture, you're still going to want to make a tool chest. So that's kind of what we're thinking there. So just
cool.
Different model of information.
Okay. Well, got a couple more questions, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you how you became the ambassador for Blue Tape.
Huh.
When did Blue Tape enter into your woodworking?
It's not something I'm proud of.
But you have to own it. So,
So I did like a little dovetail, small kind of tea boxes, and I was making a piece in Wenge, which I'd put my little tails board on the pins board and scribe it with my knife and pull it away, and it's just like, I don't know where those lines are.
Yeah. Invisible.
You try the chalk thing and all that, and I remember back from my art school days where you did the masking, and especially with like spray guns and that kind of stuff. And I thought, oh, okay. So I threw some tape on the end grain, scribed through it, lifted it, peeled away. I could see what I was doing. Great. And just forgot about it. That was just a visual trick that worked in that one instance, and didn't think anything about it. And while later I was working in white oak, which I am tending to do, cutting some dovetails, and that end grain can be super hard and super busy and be hard to see. It's like, oh yeah, that blue tape, let me throw that on there. And that was definitely not something I was telling anybody on the staff about the work that I was doing. I never would have heard the end of it, and I still don't hear the end of it. But yeah, I tried it, and the joint, it just like went together really well when I was done. It was just that kind of shunk, that kind of vacuum fit. It's like, wow, I got lucky there. And then I tried it in another corner, and it was like shunk. It's like, what is going on here? So yeah, I mean, blame it on failing eyesight or whatever, but the blue tape, it did a lot of things that and where I was really, really sold on the technique is it's a technique I use in all of my classes where people are cutting dovetails. So, you have this infinitely thin knife line that you can't see, and you tell someone you have to cut adjacent to the line, but don't cut into it, but don't leave wood between the line and your saw, and make sure you saw on the right side of the line, because if you don't, you've already cut gaps in there. So, but it's like, throw some tape down, scribe, and take a look and put your piece back down. If there's big gaps between the tape and the workpiece, pull the tape off and try it again until it's right. And then it's like, saw next to the piece of tape. Don't cut into it, but just saw next to it. And the tape tells you what side of the line to saw on. It tells you exactly where the line is. And just that psychology of, for myself, can I saw adjacent to an infinitely thin line, but not cut into it? Nope. Can I saw next to a piece of tape? Yeah, I can do that.
Sure can.
So, yeah, and probably like one of the proudest moments in my professional career was, I don't know, I'd written an article on it, and it was like maybe about a year later, I just get like a 1-sentence email from Steve Latta, who's like my true hero of woodworking, and it just said, "Oh, that worked really well." And like that was it.
You taught Steve Latta something.
I've taught Steve Latta nothing. No. And he did say, "Hey man, do you mind if I show that to my students?" So I was tickled pink. I'm still proud of that. So yeah, it's a good thing. If you haven't tried it, try it. And I love the little back and forth on social media. See that guy with the tape? Yeah, I'd never try that. I wonder if it works. I don't know. I'm not going to do that. It's just like, shut up and try it. Just, but I don't care. So
Okay, so what's your favorite brand of blue tape?
3M original.
3M original.
Okay.
Okay.
The spongy stuff.
It's got to be the spongy stuff. It cannot be like what is that, edge lock?
Yeah.
It's more expensive, and it's super smooth. Also,
Good for painting.
yeah, who paints?
Well, you do sometimes, don't you? Some of your pieces have paint on them, don't they?
Under duress only. No, the main reason I don't like the super smooth stuff is I use tape to as for gluing up miter boxes, little miter boxes. You need the stretch there.
Right,
So,
just act it's a bit of a clamp.
yeah, but
And the grip, right? It's the spongy stuff grips better.
it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Instead of the workpiece can kind of slide a little bit. Yeah.
Well, I would also like to ask you before we let you go about your shop. So
Yeah.
you have one of the nicest looking shops, and I've always wondered. I think I've heard you describe it before, and I think you always say, "Hey, I just did pictures of the cleaned up areas."
Yeah.
Or I frame the shots, strategically. But how big is your shop? Now, you built this shop right on your property?
The shop is I took over our very small 2-car garage when we moved in.
Oh, okay.
And it was a 20 by 20 cinder block walls. And so the interior was like 19 by 19. And then when I decided to get serious about the weather and insulation, I basically framed out walls on the inside of the cinder blocks, insulated those, and put drywall in. So the interior is like 18 by 18. It's really small. And I kind of, there's like an angle to shoot where you get the workbench and the north facing window and the tool chest and the tool cabinet and the clamps on the wall. And it's just like, it's not a coincidence. You see that shot a lot. Yeah.
the Instagram corner.
Yeah. So, it's kind of, but when it's clean, it's a really great space to work. I've seen people in much bigger shops, and some people have really clean, well-organized shops, no matter the size. I'm the kind of person where the bigger the shop, it would just be the bigger the mess. I would still hit the critical mass no matter how big my shop was. So I just keep telling myself, work within the space you've got. I think the only thing I really wish I had more space for, and it's hopefully something I can do with an outbuilding or shed, is that just long-term lumber storage. I just don't have the room for that. And, things like a lot of species are getting decimated. I love working with ash. It's one of those things which is going by the wayside. So I'd love nothing more than to, get me a few 100 board feet of ash, of white oak, of, a number of woods. And I find a lot of my cool stuff comes from boards that I just have sitting around. And so that, so long-term lumber storage, I say that's the only thing I complain about. Other than that, I'm super, super happy and comfortable with it.
Yeah. I was going through my lumber storage today, matter of fact, and I got one of those horizontal type things, which kind of suck. But I pulled off a piece of wood and I'm like, is that butternut? What the hell is that? I don't know what the hell that is. I'm in there racking my brain. Do I remember putting this piece? I don't know. No, that's the butternut over there. And that can't be butternut. It's one of those things. I'm going to have to get, Hotley, however you pronounce his name, book. And so I can identify what lumber I have actually stored sometimes. It's like, golly. Anyway, so what do you have in your shop as far as power tools? You got table saw, of course.
Yep. So in college, I kind of worked a couple summers to get all my stuff together. I started out with the Delta 3 horsepower unisaw, 8-inch joiner, 13-inch Delta Rockwell planer, and a 14-inch Delta bandsaw. So of those things, I still have the planer and the joiner with a bird head in the planer, and I've replaced the Delta with a saw stop. Just, you get through enough years in the shop and you can still count to 10 on your fingers. It's like, okay,
yep,
I'm cutting my losses. Let's.
Yep.
And then I replaced my 14-inch bandsaw with a 17-inch Grizzly, which was huge improvement to where you can really truly resaw wider boards. And that was a game changer, because I just had the old little cast iron frame 14-inch bandsaw with a little skinny blade, and of course the blade was never sharp and the cuts were never straight. So I have a Powermatic hollow chisel mortiser as my other sort of main piece of equipment. Those are the big guys. And I just got my hands on a Shaper Origin to play around with. So that's kind of a new thing that I'm just starting to experiment with. I kind of wanted to be able to answer that question to our readership, which are people who've been in the craft for a long time, who have complete shop setups. And they're like, what is this thing? Does it work? How would this fit into my routine? Do I need one? And I couldn't answer any of those questions. It's that I don't know. Like
no more masking tape.
No, you got the tape with the domino. So
The domino tape.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, domino tape now.
you're just kicking up the tape game. So yeah.
It's
so
not good for miter boxes. I'll tell you that.
what's that?
It's no the domino tape's no good for miter boxes. You'll have to stick with your masking tape for that.
It can be a multi-tape guy. That's fine. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and I think those answers to those questions aren't simple or easy. I don't have them yet. I kind of want to see there are some things it can do that I can do a lot better and faster. There are other things it can do that I know how to do, but it can do them a lot more accurately and faster than I can. So it's like, okay, that's kind of a cool equation. And then the third thing is I really think it offers a means to work and think in a different way. So it isn't just how do you replicate traditional joinery methods, but it's like, with this in hand, what are the possibilities now? That's kind of what I'm excited about. Again, I don't have the answers for that yet, but that's kind of my side project, is to kind of get a better understanding of what's going on with that technology. Ben Strano, he's got the CNC, stationary CNC, and the 3D printing side of the technology. He's kind of working on that, figuring that out. And I figured, well, we'll kind of get to know the shaper. And Amanda Russell, who's on the staff, she is down with the shaper. She does really amazing stuff. She shares a shop with Eric Curtis and Larissa Huff, and they both do really, really amazing things as well. So they're inspiring. One thing we have that I just don't have the bandwidth to jump into, we do have a Panther router in the shop, which is really amazing. They can do super, super cool stuff, but I just can't, I don't have it in me to jump down that rabbit hole as well. Do any of you guys have the Panther router or the Origin?
No, I've like you, I've been interested in the Shaper Origin, but it's I'm going to be interested to see what you come up with, because I have the same questions. How is this going to work into my workflow? How not? Now Mark's got industrial 4-axis CNC type thing.
Well, I have another axis, but I've never figured out how to use it. It's rotary, but yeah. But that's, I mean, I'm using it to cut big sheets of plywood, but I also use it to cut joinery for workbenches. So,
cool.
If you're patient and you build the right fixtures, you can do a lot of incredible stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the Origin came out just as I was getting into bigger CNC stuff, and I thought, man, that would be really great for making patterns.
Yeah.
I couldn't see with the stuff workbenches, right? Like, so I'm not going to use a 1/4-inch bit to make a workbench. But I was like, man, I could surely use it to make, some templates for a bigger router bit. So yeah, I saw the potential right away, but I didn't have a need for it, what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think templates are super cool. I know people, Daryl Peart, who has been into the CNC for a really long time, makes really good use of that for templates. And, talking to Ben Strano, he's like, why would I want an Origin when I have a CNC and I can push a button and it can do what it does and I can go do something else? Have to babysit this thing through every cut. It's like, yeah, that's a really, really good point. But then the Origin, it has a potential for, doing more 3-dimensional work, working on the ends of parts, working on joinery as opposed to working on the face of a piece. So yeah, I think there's interesting things. And then it gets back to this question, and I don't know the answer to this. And Kyle, it kind of speaks to your search for perfecting the processes of making a chair. And I really, really respond to that. And that's something that I'm really passionate about as well, obviously. But in furniture making, chair making, I think all bets are off. You just find the best way to do it, because it's hard. Don't make life harder. But I think for furniture making, a lot of it for people is the experience in the shop. And what is that experience? What makes you excited? And it's like, okay, I do kind of double hinge router templates that clamp onto a case and a door, and I have perfectly sized hinge mortises, perfectly spaced on 2 parts, and they come together exactly. And it's like, it works really, really well. But there are people who say, no, I want to scribe and chop and get out my little mini router plane and route that mortise down. So it's like, there's this thing where, yeah, I can really kind of push things to this maximum efficiency, but is it getting away from that user experience that person is in the shop for? So, so yeah, just because like a Shaper Origin can do something more quickly, more accurately, Is that a good thing? For me personally, it's like, yeah, get me to my finish line as quickly and perfectly as possible. Other people, it's that journey. That's what they're in it for. And, a friend of mine had a domino forever. He didn't like using it because he said to me, that's not woodworking. And I understand that as well. So I think the conversation with technology and woodworking, it's a deep one, and there are a lot of different answers. There's no one right to that question.
Yeah. I think it's a personal decision what you want to go down, and where you get your satisfaction. It's like, hey, I took that last fine shaving and everything fits perfectly, and you get a burst of endorphins when that happens. It's like, yes.
Yeah, and for me, and this is something I kind of picked up from reading Krenov's books. It's this notion of, I try to be as efficient as possible, and efficient doesn't mean as fast as possible. It means as fast towards a defined end goal. But if my end goal changes to suit the technology, then that's bad. And so I think, Krenov said machines are great as long as machines don't sort of overtake the process, as long as the machines are serving the maker in terms of what they want to make. That's a good thing. As soon as machines begin to dictate what that person is making, that's a negative thing. So I try to keep that in mind.
That's an important distinction. Yeah.
It very much is.
That's kind of why I got into hand tools, because I couldn't see a way to do the machine, to use the machines to do what I wanted.
Yeah.
And that opened up a whole Pandora's box.
A deep rabbit hole.
Yes.
Well, with that, I'll finish this up. But besides being a championship disc golfer, what are some of your other pursuits outside of woodworking?
Man, if it's not woodworking, it's woodworking.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wear a lot of hats, and all of them say woodworking on it. No, disc golf is like kind of my true hobby. It's been my saving grace since COVID. So that's a way to get out of the shop. Love to cook. That's it. And I like to eat and barbecue. It's like lifelong pursuit of perfecting a brisket on my.
Yeah, that's a worthy goal.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. So I'm still there.
Are your discs turned of wood or plastic?
They are not. They are not. No. Yeah.
Well, with that, let's move on to our fortnightly beer choices. So I'll kick us off. I'm recommending, I am not drinking, the Degar Belgian Triple, which is a special beer that's brewed for one pub in Belgium, and forgot exactly where, but anyway, but you can find it at liquor stores and stuff, and it comes in basically a wine bottle. It's 750 milliliters and 11%. So basically, it's wine beer.
It's wine.
Yeah.
But
it doesn't keep for
right there.
3 or 4 days.
yeah. My wife and I shared a bottle over the weekend, and it was very, very good, very, very good. So highly recommend that.
All right.
So Sean, where are you drinking?
Well, I mean, inspired by your normal, I have your typical house beer. I'm drinking a Guinness tonight. Surprised that it wasn't yours tonight, but
I am actually drinking a Guinness tonight.
There you go. There you go. So,
but I was recommending the other one. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're good. You're good. No, Guinness. I introduced my 21-year-old son to the St. Patrick's Day. He said he's never had it before. I said, okay.
He's playing along.
I think so. I really do think so. But he goes, okay. It's a little thicker. I'm like, it's not a good stout. Let's be fair. Guinness is okay.
Murphy's is the best stout.
But no, there are better stouts than that. Founders makes a better stout than in my opinion. I mean,
okay,
it's all whatever. But
yeah.
But like Guinness as a staple, everyone should know what Guinness is.
Yeah.
To place it in the ranks, however you go. And so I was happy to experience, maybe for the first time with my son, and for the first time, and in my 46 years, I've always poured, the draft cans with the little piston inside. I poured them at like an angle to like control, the flow and make not a great head. Both my kids, one of them is not drinking age, you tip the can completely upside down. You slowly raise it. Yeah. I'm like, that's brilliant. It actually comes out much better. And I've never seen it before. I don't know why, but yeah.
My
that's
understanding
great
is that
help.
they designed the can for that purpose.
To be
Yeah.
tipped directly
To
upside
be
down.
totally vertical. Yeah.
How in 20 plus years of drinking did I not know that? Like,
Also, I can pretty much guarantee it's not your son's first Guinness then.
I mean, maybe
I researched this on
telling
YouTube,
me
Dad.
about it. Yeah, no, I mean, I think my 18-year-old quickly showed me the video. I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, that does look successful. It looks like a good, nice, even head. When it's poured that way, and
Okay.
that's what you're looking for. You're looking for a good pour, and whatever, it works out.
I have not had it, but I understand that true Irish Guinness from like Dublin,
Yeah,
totally different. Tastes totally different. So much better.
and that's what I've heard as well. It's first of all, I think it's
It-
room temperature
Yeah. Well, it does taste
or
different.
close
A
to.
little bit higher in alcohol content.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
Someday,
But I still
Brian.
prefer Murphy's better, more.
Brian,
than
you and I, let's go to
Guinness.
Ireland.
Woodworking in Ireland. I can see it right now.
I love it. I love the idea. I'll book it now. I can't.
WII.
I can barely make it to Austin, but I will make it to Ireland.
There we go.
Mark, how about you? What are
Yeah.
you sipping on?
We'll do Ireland for the 1,000th episode.
Yes, I concur.
Live on site. I'm drinking a Smooth Criminal,
Well done.
which is it's a local beer. I found a little tiny liquor store that sells 6-packs of Smooth Criminal cheaper than you can buy it for at the brewery.
Wow.
And I was like, "Is this a sale thing?" He's like, "Nope. I just think everybody else is overpriced." I was like, "I agree. I'll take a
Yeah.
6-pack."
Yes, sir. I will buy your stock. Thank you, sir.
How about you, Brian?
Decided to change it up. Anybody who lives in the eastern half of Pennsylvania or New Jersey would know what iced tea is. It's like an iced tea mix, but it's just it's like a local staple. But they also make like a lemonade mix. So I did like an Arnold Palmer, and I threw in some Whistle Pig whiskey that I have sitting around. It's quite tasty. It's
Nice.
probably a little too heavy on the whiskey, to be honest, but yeah, I'll take it.
It's more like whiskey cut with a little iced tea and lemonade.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's good. That's all I gotta say. This is the kind of stuff I usually drink if I'm poolside, but it's dark and cold here, so I can't do that.
Mhm.
Mike, are you drinking anything tonight?
I'm not drinking anything tonight. If I were, it would be something from Treehouse Brewing in Massachusetts.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
You know, if you are a fan of the hit you over the head with dry hops New England style IPA, this is the place to be. Yeah, probably. So there are 3 standouts. They have Green, Julius, and Hayes. Hayes is sort of a double IPA. It's like 8.5%, so that can be a little bit heavy. But probably Julius is probably the first Treehouse beer that I had tried and just fell in love with them. It's just ruined me because you have to go to the brewery, which is about 45 minutes away, and you have to stand in line for an hour to get your beer and put your order in, and you have to order the right way. You have to walk left in the right direction, and then
It's like the soup Nazi. I've been there too.
You're
Nazi.
I don't know. I mean, whether it's Treehouse Beer, whether it's Pepe's Pizza, New Haven, or Terry Black's, is just the weight always makes tastes better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, any super hoppy New England style IPA, I'm still a fan of. I know that used to be the super cool thing to say, and then it became the really out of it thing to say.
Yeah.
But you're not
At some point, the heavy, hazy IPA thing is going to kind of tip over the scale, and it's going to become something else. I don't know what it is because it's coming from both coasts at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's a West Coast style. San Diego has a lot of good breweries.
Yeah.
Too. Everybody does, but yeah, like Pilsner, I think is like kind of the hot new beer. It's like,
Which is crazy because it's the blandest of the bland.
I'll just be here. I'll just be here drinking my double IPAs.
there you
Yep.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're here.
I think
Yeah.
there's a fair population who were drinking the double IPAs just because they were shamed into it and they secretly hated it. And Pilsner, so
Admittedly, my wife loves a good hoppy IPA way more than I do.
right.
Way more. Yeah, she wants the dankest of the dank.
Yeah.
But I like sours and she doesn't.
Oh, see, sours are super cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, do you go to the Treehouse that's like on the hillside? Like there's three of them, I think, right?
Yes. So
The timber framed structure and everything.
Yep.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite places.
yeah, very cool. So you've been,
Yeah,
obviously.
I have to go up to New Hampshire and Vermont for work once in a while, and I always accidentally swing
Yeah.
by there on the way home. So
Oops.
Same thing. I'm heading up to Maine to see Chris Beckford or something. I hit on the way back, and my friends all know because it's like you can't go there and buy a 6-pack of beer. Like,
so you walk out with a case at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
You've waited in line.
and unfortunately, I'm a lightweight, and you got to drink the beer fresh, so it can't sit in your fridge for a month. And I'm not going to be able to down these big 16-ounce, double IPAs. So so I have a small circle of friends who always get care packages whenever I head up.
Oh, good friends to
Nice, nice. Well, speaking of new friends, where can folks find you on the interwebs, Mike?
Instagram Pekovich at Pekovich Woodworks, website pekovichwoodworks.com if you want to see some of my furniture, and findwoodworking.com if you want to see a lot of instructional video and lots of good kind of stuff, articles. And go to Amazon and I got a couple books still available on Amazon. My third book is going to be with a different publisher, so that will be forthcoming in
Cool.
a year or so. Yep.
All right.
Nice, nice. So is Taunton not? I guess are out of the book publishing business too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Taunton is no longer in existence, and AIM acquired the magazines as well as the books division, and then they decided that they really didn't have the expertise to publish books, and then they sold off the books division to another books publisher, fairly big publishing house in New York. And it just I had signed a contract with Taunton before all this happened, and the new publisher, it didn't feel like a good fit. So I was able to get out of that contract and hook up with a publisher who's a little more knowledgeable and involved with woodworking books.
Okay.
So that'll be cool.
Nice. That was fortunate. Cool. Well, so Mark, what kind of feedback do we have?
Well, we've got some comments from episode 547 with Alex P. and the rotating dovetail joint.
It's pay, Alex.
Hey, yeah, I knew I was going to say that wrong. I just, my turn to say it wrong. Yeah, sorry, Alex. I didn't mean to butcher that. So Son Oakleaf _furniture says incredible and is giving the clapping hands. Both Charles Hobby and Shinobi Tree give it 3 flames up. And Carson Libby says, cool, so proud of you. I'm wondering if they know each other.
Yes.
But,
I think so.
okay, so that's what we've got for that episode. We'd like you to leave some comments. It seems like Instagram is the place to do it. So go to what is it? Give me the handle, Kyle.
At MWA_podcast.
Oh, that's easy. I should know that. Yeah, come over to our Instagram page, leave a comment, especially if you like this episode or any of the other episodes, all 547 of them, or 540. How many we had to?
This is 550.
It's
550.
550. Yeah.
Man, sorry, I've been gone. I missed
Yeah.
but it's been busy here. Yeah, leave a comment. We love to hear them, and we'll see you on the next one.
And that just about wraps it up for this show. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show on the podcatcher of your choice. Just search for the Modern Woodworkers Association. And while you're there, please leave us a review. You can follow us on Instagram at MWA_podcast. And if you'd like to support the podcast, go over to patreon.com/MWA podcast. But the best thing you can do is tell a friend. Word of mouth goes a long way in sharing our discussion.